What time is it?
This week? This week.
Today is.
Yeah, this week.
Up until Friday.
You know
Potentially.
what? I got a week of vacation coming next week. God knows, maybe I'll never come back.
Stop now. Come on, stop. But training, you won't find it on broadcast.
No, I didn't think.
But it's open. That's our advanced security. We hide it in plain sight.
Oh, Microsoft security.
Yeah.
Sweet. I was asked this tonight, are you still going to it? Yeah. I don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one. Oh, really? What's it on? Don't know. I just know when I read it originally that it was going to be a good one.
so that's all you need to know.
Yeah, forewarning you, I did put your name down on that paperwork.
Good. Good. We're holding spot for you.
I haven't told Paula how much it cost yet.
That was. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boss ain't gonna pick that up.
Huh? Oh, no. In fact, I gotta take vacation days. It's okay, because they said that the only leadership they what's the word, acknowledge is the training, the leadership that they do. And I've talked to
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they have a leadership training class in district. And as I found out from 4 people that took it, yeah, just don't go.
That's not good.
No, resounding.
That's not
That's
good
okay.
at all.
Like I said, I'll go to a good one.
It was a lot of fun. What Craig's talking about, lovely segue into this advertising. Hey, my flyers?
No way.
I do. The AIM IT Leadership Academy, which is in its 3rd year. It is it's 1 day a month for 9 months. It's always on a Friday. And the whole point of it was we started it 3 years ago. The whole point of it was to sort of designed for IT people who were really good on the IT skills, but maybe had never been in management or in any kind of major leadership role, and to sort of start introducing them to the things they need to think about from a management leadership standpoint. So we bring in, it's a different topic every month. We bring in, each month has external speakers that we bring in from different areas of the community and the broader community, and they talk about different things around leadership. It's not IT specific, just in that the vast majority of the people that are in the class have jobs in IT. So it's a really good networking opportunity. It's a lot of fun. I was in the inaugural class. We had a lot of fun. A lot of people from First Data there, from the railroad, from First National. So
First Data. So they knew they'd need a new job.
there were like 6 people from First Data in that first one. Yeah, they really participated a lot. Yeah, and our second one just ended a couple months ago. JD Pace, some of you know him. He's one of my developers. He attended that one. One of my project managers is going this year, and so we still have 3 or 4 spots open. The official deadline for sign up, I think, is this Thursday. But yeah, this Friday. Okay, I can remember what the 10th or whatever.
Yep.
But if that's something you're interested in, I got flyers for it up here and on the AIM website too. It's on there. And I should really have prices when I talk about this stuff, but I don't.
It's on the bottom, back.
Oh, it actually is. Well, there you go. Ask Craig if you have any questions. He's clearly researched this a lot more than I have. Yeah, if your company is an AIM member, yeah, it's $3,000, $3,250 if you're not an AIM member. And it includes, it says all there. There's a bunch of materials. Oh my God, I've got this binder this thick for that stuff. You go through the Gallup Strengths Finder thing, which in itself is, that's pretty spendy from what I know as well. So, hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Howdy.
How are you? Come on in. Find a seat.
I didn't realize the Gallup portion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a pretty good partnership with Gallup. And I don't know if that's true for this year or not, but last year, 2 of the sessions were at Gallup, actually at the Gallup campus. So I'm not sure what the schedule is. I'm on the advisory committee, but I don't know what the schedules are. Hi. How are you guys? Come on, find a chair. It's like church. Everybody sits in the back. So we're just getting started. There's one spot right up front.
I'll give those who don't have a laptop the computers.
Well, that's true. That's true. And I've sort of took over this whole table up here, but I can certainly move.
Yeah. I can slide off this side.
I can get out of the way. I got to leave the Mac here, though, because we're broadcasting. John left me explicit instructions. John's not here. He's in Denver.
Yeah, I know.
On vacation.
He's on the plane.
Oh, is he flying back now?
The plane.
The plane. He's flying back now. Good. Oh, that's right. You had to go to the lair, didn't you? You had to go to the lair to take care
No,
of
actually, I had to go to the home of the
Oh,
lair.
that's right. And there, you saw their advanced server infrastructure.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
He really keeps them on the cheap, doesn't he?
You have no idea. Dude, they were on a DOS point of sale system until like 3 years ago. Yeah, it's something else.
I think the machine that they've got running I'm surprised it still runs their QuickBooks.
Yeah, it's pretty ancient. Did that sign-in sheet get passed around somewhere?
With that.
Back there. Okay, thank you. I have a sign-in sheet. I work for the AIM Institute. We're a nonprofit technology-based organization. Anytime we do a community event like this, it is in our best interest to have a sign-in sheet. I don't want your contact information. I'm not going to email you. I don't want to know it. Just put your name on there just so I can have a count at the end of the year to say, hey, we did this much. What's the term? We served this many people in the community into this aspect for this year. So that's all I want for. So. Okay, it's a little bit after 6:30, so we'll get started. Welcome. This is the September 2010 meeting of the Omaha Linux Users Group. I'm going to try to stand here as much as possible because we're broadcasting on Ustream right here. You can go to the OLUG channel on ustream.tv and see a recording of this, and past ones as well. We've been doing this for how long? We've been Ustreaming, Craig?
Quite a few months.
6 months, something like that. I don't know. There's quite a few up there. So there's a link directly to this on the website at olug.org. If you're interested in taking a look at that, it's there. I think there were a number of people who were going to join us tonight via that way. So, my name is Adam Haeder. I am the Vice President of the Omaha Linux Users Group. I'm also the Vice President of Information Technology for the AIM Institute. That's the building that you're in. AIM owns this building. We are a technology-based nonprofit organization. Evening.
Hey, buddy.
That focuses on any kind of technology issues around the area. Our service area is Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, and North Dakota. And it was originally started by the Chamber of Commerce about 15 years ago to address IT worker shortage problems in the area. And our charter has changed a lot in the intervening time, but we still address any kind of those issues around IT. And I've been a Linux guy from way back. I've done this for a long time with Craig and some of these other old hands here. So enough about me. We have announcements and stuff after the presentation, but let's get through that and go any questions and whatever, and we'll go from there. So welcome. There's restrooms back there if anybody needs them. That's it. Okay. Okay. My talk tonight is going to be on monitoring HTTP traffic with a Linux gateway. As you all know, if you've been part of the OLUG list for any length of time, getting speaker topics is always a challenge. Nobody wants to stand up and speak in front of all you intimidating people, apparently. So I end up doing I do a lot of these. I'm way past the point of embarrassment, so I just don't care.
There's always people that know more than me.
I just don't care anymore. Well, I just operate from that assumption right there and go forward. So I've done Linux stuff for a long time, and in various aspects of it. And I sort of try to be wider than I am deep. So I'm not a really great programmer. I'm not a really great DBA, but I can do kind of a little bit here and there. So what I wanted to show tonight is an example of a project that I worked on a while ago that sort of is an example of a lot of things that I like about Linux. It's the fact that with a relatively standard set of tools and a pretty easy setup, you can accomplish a project that would normally take, maybe some pretty advanced technology or some expensive commercial software in order to achieve if you're in a, kind of a non-Linux environment. So that's the whole point of this, is how I went about doing this. And we're gonna look and see detail what exactly I'm doing here, and I guarantee, I promise, there are solutions for this kind of an issue that are better, that have a lot more features, all these other superlatives you can think of. The advantage of the solution that I approached here was that it was easy to implement, it was quick. I implemented this in an afternoon about a year ago, and it worked. It works. So that's sort of been my favorite thing about Linux over the years, is that you can do those kinds of things without a lot of investment really in your time or in whatever Craig's doing to that chair over there, which I'm a little unsure of. So, all right. A little background. I had a request. This is actually a solution that I've implemented in my company here. And like I said, I don't do a lot of these anymore. I'm not supposed to get all this hands-on stuff because I'm the boss now, so I'm supposed to let all my employees do that. But they're all doing their own thing. So every once in a while I'll pick up one of these little side projects just because I enjoy them. And I had a request from the boss quite a while ago, a year or so ago, saying, we should really probably start monitoring what websites people are going to. Not like to, start blocking sites, or, we don't want to put some big nanny filter in place, but just from an informational standpoint. Hey, how much time is Craig spending on Facebook every day? Just pick a name out of the air. So I said, okay, I think I can figure out how to do this. Now, there's 100 different ways to do this. And here's what I ended up accomplishing this with. A dual home Linux server, so with 2 network cards in it, acting as the default gateway or the default route for an internal network. Very much like this network we have set up here. These boxes all have internal private IP addresses. They all connect to the internet through a Linux box, which is like a floor up over there somewhere. And they're sharing, and that Linux box does the network address translation to allow them to all access the internet at the same time. From the cloud, every HTTP access from one of these boxes looks like it's coming from a single IP, right? That right there, the sole reason why we're still on IP version 4 and haven't had to migrate to v6 yet, is because, yes, thank God. One of these days. Okay, so you need that. You need a copy of TCP dump, which is a standard console-based network sniffer. My example, I'm storing everything in a MySQL database. It doesn't have to be MySQL, anything you want. Shoot, you can do it text files if you want. The searching gets a little hairy if you got text files, so I prefer a database for that. And then a web server with PHP to actually view the reports. So here's the problem statement. If all network traffic is already going through a single point, then it's easy to monitor whom is going where. You know, it's one of those things that sounds really easy, and I always give my boss grief about this because she's a very intelligent woman and she has a really good technical background, but she knows just enough to be able to ask the right questions, but not enough to know really how long some of these things are going to take. So almost all of her questions start with, how easy would it be to do this? And you know, you can't ask someone in technology how easy it's going to be because the answer is always going to be, oh, I can do that, no problem, right?
2 weeks.
Right, 2 weeks. 2 weeks at the most.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a hit to my ego. So of course I can do this. Kidding me? But you know, this is a problem that it's one of those examples, and I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. When you're working sort of in the customer service or design documentation environment, when you're working with a client and they're saying, okay, here's what I want. The big thing you have to do is really figure out not what they're saying, but what they mean, right? And so she asked, hey, how easy would it be to monitor this? Well, simple. It's literally a one-liner in TCP dump. But that's going to give the output in a format that I'd be able to parse, and I'd be able to, you know, answer any questions. But that's not what she wants. She wants something that she can pull up at 11 o'clock at night and query, right? And so I know that going into it. So it's not just a piece of actually capturing the data and organizing it. It's putting a reporting interface in the front end to be able to offer queries to it. So it sort of becomes 2 problems. The key is to match the traffic back to an individual. That's another thing as well. In the network world, I mean, right now, you guys all sat down in front of these computers. Noel pulls up ESPN.com. I can see in my logs, if I ran this, that this IP address went to ESPN.com. I have no idea, unless I'm sitting here right now looking at him, that it was Noel that actually went to ESPN.com, right? I can map it back to an IP address, but that's not going to be good enough for the situation that I want here. So we've got to solve that problem too. We've got to somehow get this back to a human being as well. And again, work that into the reporting interface to display the data. Okay, is this the best way to do it? Probably not. You know, like I said, there's tons of tools out here that are designed specifically to do this. Now, I've been doing Linux for a long time, and I'd like to think that I'm broad enough in a technology standpoint that I don't immediately think of Linux as the hammer that I try to use to pound every single nail that I come across. There are situations where the right tool for the right job is the most important thing. And especially in a corporate environment like I'm in, you really have to be aware of how much time you're spending on some of these issues. This is the kind of thing that I have to teach my interns. I always have sort of a rotating field of high school and college interns coming through my office who work on the IT side. It's usually the system side. Every once in a while we'll have some development interns, but usually it's the system side. And one of the first big things that I have to teach them is you have to get really good at guessing how long something's going to take you. Because if you stink at that, then you're going to fail on a lot of the projects that you work on. And failure doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I didn't get the right answer. Failure means, hey, it cost me more to get the right answer than it would have done if I would have either paid somebody else to do it or bought the answer off the shelf. And so that's something you have to think about. You know, if I come up with a solution to a problem that's going to cost $50,000, but I could have bought it over here for 10, I mean, what should I do? right? So that's sort of the, yes,
It all
you in the
depends-
corner.
All depends on who you work for.
Well, logically, what should I do? Should have thrown that in there, right? There's lots of commercial-based software that'll do this. Heck, if I was in a situation when I was first designing this where I said, if I go to newegg.com right now and buy this package for $250, I can have it up and running by the end of the day. I'm doing it. Why not, right? But, of course, and most of you know this, being interested in Linux in the open source world, the issues you have then is the extensibility, the modification, the customization options you have for your environment, right? We've all been in way too many situations where you got one software vendor that tries to say, hey, my software is one size fits all. It's going to do everything you possibly want. That doesn't exist. There's no way, right? So that's one of the reasons that open source software has taken such a foothold in the corporate world, is because it, by its very nature, allows you to get in underneath and change things and work with them at that low level. Rob? Now, the con of that, that's the pro side of it. The con of that is that it takes your time. That's a great quote I heard from somebody years ago, was that Linux is only free if your time is worth nothing. And that's completely true. You've got to figure in how long some of these things are going to take you. But again, back to this solution, that was one of the reasons that I went with this solution, is because it was very easy to implement. So what are some other options? We've all heard of the different Net Nanny and Cyber Patrol and all these different suites that purport to do all this stuff. OpenDNS kind of does this. And I tell you, if you take nothing away from tonight, if you're in a situation like this, and let's say you don't want to get this detailed, but you just want to say, I want to block I don't want my kids to see bad stuff on the internet, right? Again, 100 different ways you can implement this. The absolute easiest, that is the simplest to implement and requires the least change on your side, is to go with OpenDNS. And all it is a publicly available DNS service that you configure either all your clients to hit, or more likely your wireless router, which hands out IP addresses to all your systems in your house, right? Instead of pointing it to your ISP's DNS server, you set up an account on OpenDNS, and you point it to the IP address they give you. And you can configure in there what categories of sites you don't want people to be able to see. Now remember the way DNS works, right? You pull up ESPN.com, because you can remember that, because we humans are pretty good at remembering names and letters and phrases and things like that. Not so good at remembering numbers. So I don't remember the IP address, but I can remember ESPN.com. The DNS service is what converts that to a number, right? So OpenDNS, let's say I have a filter on this that says, no sports sites. OpenDNS will not return you the IP for ESPN.com in that situation. It'll return an IP address that's specific to OpenDNS, and you'll get an error page. So your browser will think it's going to ESPN.com because DNS told it this was the IP address. But in reality, you're actually not. Now, we all know, being in the IT world, that's not really blocking you from going to ESPN.com, right? But for 99% of the people that utilize the web, if DNS doesn't work, the web is broken, right? They don't know IP addresses, they don't know how any of that stuff works. If I type google.com, it doesn't work, then the internet's down. So it works fine for most instances. We offer the wireless service for the bar right over here in the building. And it's publicly available Wi-Fi, and we run it through OpenDNS. And we filter, all the bad stuff out of it. And it works great. Is it easy to circumvent if you know what you're doing? Sure. Modify your host file to point to a different DNS server, right? But how many people outside of this room know how to do that? Very few. So it's an effective solution in that it's very easy to implement. Of course, then if you want to really swing a big stick at it, you can always go with Squid. Squid is the most popular open source caching proxy server that can do all kinds of things, including what we're talking about here, just simple logging. Now, implementing Squid is kind of a big investment. Even if you've already got the infrastructure in place where you could just drop it on a box, it's a big deal to all of us. You're not just going to put Squid in overnight and magically everything will work happily. It's great. I mean, I know lots of people that use it, but it's an investment, okay? So if your requirements for something like this are exceeding what I'm going to talk about here tonight, I definitely recommend you take a look at Squid. It can do everything I talk about and more. It's the kitchen sink of these kind of things. Okay, so again, why do it this way? Because I'm really, really lazy is what it kind of comes down to. And I want to get this stuff done quick. Okay, so here's our network design. Here's our sample. Of course, I'm making up these IPs. Dual home Linux box named server. It's got 2 NICs in it. Actually, X number of NICs. You can have as many as you want. We'll say the outside IP is 1.1.1.1. Internal is on the 192. And a database server somewhere. Could be the same box. Doesn't have to be. Let's say it's called DB serve and it's on the internal network. You could do all this on one box. Okay, so here's a little bit of a logic flow. Here's how this is going to work. The TCP dump program is going to run all the time on that box labeled as the gateway. It's going to capture, it puts the, what it's going to do is listen on the internal interface for anybody from the inside making outbound connections to port 80. Port 80 is the default web port, right? That's all I really care about. So it's going to listen for outbound requests to port 80. It's running all the time. When it finds one, TCP dump has an option to save the packet information to a file. So it's going to save it to a little temporary file over here. Each packet, the information for each packet is going to get saved to a temporary file over here in this queue directory. Then I have a process that monitors that queue directory. When it finds a new file that was created, it logs the data into a table under my MySQL database. And here at the time, here's when the actual conversion of IP addresses to usernames takes place based on another lookup table that I have set up. Now, okay, finally, there's a PHP-based query reporting tool. Okay, so this is sort of how all the pieces. Now let's look at this one for a second. TCP dump is running all the time, and it gets this data. This data is going to end up in this MySQL table over here. But notice that I'm not doing it directly. I'm writing it to a temporary file and file system, and then I'm having a process monitor that queue directory and import those into MySQL. Why am I taking that seemingly unnecessary second step there as the middleman?
Speed.
Speed, okay, elaborate.
Well, wouldn't, if I've got TCP dump trying to write to this MySQL table or MySQL database on another box, and it's taking time to do this, isn't it slowing the packets
TCP
coming
dump
through?
could miss packets.
That's a very good point, right? You think about, you know, the old adage, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The application is only as fast as the slowest piece. If that TCP dump process, which is running in real time and could be capturing, I don't know, 5 packets a second, 5,000 packets a second, depends on what your network traffic is, right? I really don't have any idea. I should probably look and see how many I'm actually capturing. It's a lot. If I didn't have this intermediate process, it'd be trying to write to the database in real time. Who cares, right? We all have situations where we write to the database in real time. CareerLink.com, one of the big sites that we design and manage. Every time you pull up a page, it's writing to a database in real time. But we had to work our butts off to set up an environment where that was good enough and scalable enough to be able to handle that kind of traffic. I'm not interested in doing that here. This is a stupid little monitoring program pushing to, I mean, it's a production database server, but it's really just an internal system. So I'm not interested in trying to spend any time scaling this guy up. So I'd much rather take that whole timing thing out of the equation. The reason that you want to do stuff in real time is because the data that you're logging it's important that you get down to the second, right? That's not the case here. I don't care if this stuff is 10 minutes out of date, shoot, an hour out of date. I don't care. So I don't need to focus on having this as real time as possible. So I'm taking that sort of speed thing out of the equation. The second reason that I'm doing it this way is, like you said, the potential for TCP dump to lose data. I'm not as concerned about the time factor here because, again, I don't care if it's an hour or 2 hours late, but I don't want to lose any data. I'm much more concerned about keeping all that data. Well, what if we have, you know, this guy's running all the time, it's taking traffic, it's dumping to this database. For some reason, we need to reboot the database. Well, it's going to take a minute or two to come back up. I'm going to lose a minute or two worth of data. That's not something I want to do, right? So the nice thing about breaking this into 2 separate pieces is that if I know that this guy's going to go down the database, I can still keep running this process. All I do is turn off the process that actually takes the files and put them into the database, right? It just builds up in the queue. This is no different. If you've taken a computer science class in college, you'll get introduced to queuing theory and set theory. That's all this is. It's the idea that you think of a problem based on inputs and outputs. And you have to have a robust enough solution that a one side of your problem can queue up in situations where the next side isn't quite ready to handle it, right? And databases like MySQL handle this internally, automatically. If you have a lot of requests coming in, they're gonna block. And so this guy will wait, oh, you know, it hasn't accepted my connection, it hasn't, you know, Apache does this. When you go to a website, it takes a few seconds to come up. It's not denying you. It didn't say, nope, try again later. It says, just wait, not your turn yet, wait, and then it finally does it, right? So I'm forcibly doing this to put myself in a situation where I can easily disable a certain piece of this solution without having to turn the whole thing off. So this is a really common thing. I learned this actually from one of my first bosses years ago who kind of grew up in the mainframe world. And it's this whole batch processing model that seems, you know, we in the computer science world now have a tendency to look at anything that's more than 5 years old and sort of scoff at it and saying, oh my God, I can't believe we actually did that 5 years ago, right? But some of this stuff transcends, you know, it transcends all computer science. This is sort of the basic way to do some of these things. And especially in situations like this where I don't care as much about the immediate relevancy of the data, this model makes perfect sense. This batch model is perfectly acceptable. And then I get all the other nice things with it, and I don't have to worry about the scalability of it. So that's the logic behind it. Again, I'm just justifying being really lazy in doing this. Okay, so let's look at the actual code. I've got two kinds of code here. We're going to look at bash shell scripts. This can all be implemented in the language of your choice. I've done bash for years and years and years. I prefer it. I work from the command line on Linux a lot, so this stuff sort of comes naturally to me. And then the interface to actually view the reports will be in PHP. Could you do this in Ruby and Perl and Python? Sure, whatever. Java if you really hate yourself, I guess. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, what I did was I made a folder under my personal website called OLUG, and all these files are there. So don't worry about writing all this down. They're all there to download. So let's actually take a look at this initial shell script. This is the guy that does the actual capture, and I'm going to pull this up in a little bit better interface here, so we can see it easier. Assuming I can figure out how to zoom. How do I zoom in this program?
Isn't that a review?
You'd think it would be. I can highlight.
Or not.
No, forget it. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Try just a control plus.
Well, I did. It didn't.
Oh,
It didn't
okay.
work. Yeah. Again, you'd think that would work, right? That's really weird.
It's the thought that counts, Adam.
Gee, edit.
Oh, edit preferences? Yeah, I don't even know what editor I'm using, to tell you the truth.
Good.
Yeah. Stick a 20. Oh, that would be a
Huge,
little
baby.
large.
All right, there you go. Now people in the back can see.
Large
Okay.
and in charge.
Okay, pretty standard shell scripts. Going to start with the bin bash at the top. You've never done shell scripts before. Any kind of scripting language in Linux is always going to start with the interpreter at the first line with the shebang at the beginning there. I'm going to assign a few variables. You know, TCP dump usually lives here. What interface? This is going to be specific to your environment. You could do this on a multi-home system. My church has a box that runs this. It's got 3 NICs in it, so I got to make sure I'm watching the right one. Where I want to save these packet capture files to, you better make sure this guy's got some disk space if you're going to run this other one in a batch. Okay, so we start the script, and it first creates this output directory if it doesn't exist. And then here's the actual TCP dump line that does all the work. Now, TCP dump is a beautiful program. It has one of the longest man pages in the history of the world. Do lots and lots of things. The syntax is a little wonky. So let's take a look at this. Okay, we're calling TCP dump. N means we're not going to resolve IP addresses to names. You can have TCP dump do that name lookup for you if you want. If you do that, it's going to slow it way down, and it's going to hit your DNS like nobody's business. So I turn that off. What interface are we listening on? And then we have a rule here. We're saying destination port 80, and you can string all these together. Now here's the goofy one. TCP bracket 13 ampersand 2 does not equal 0. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't have any idea what that means. Well, I do sort of, but I mean, I can't parse it and explain it to you. But what I did was I found this guy who does know what it means, which is good. Apparently his name's Daniel Messler. And what we're doing is we're filtering on TCP flags here. If you've ever done it, because, I mean, take a step back. What are we trying to accomplish? I want to know who is going to what websites. Well, what does that mean? Your system making a transaction request, a TCP transaction request on port 80 to another website. Now we know that HTTP is stateless, right? So every time you go to a page, a request is going to go from your system to the server, and a response is going to come back, right? And you have this whole handshaking thing that's set up, and then data is transferred. And every time you pull up a new image or a new page, whatever, it's a new request, okay? I don't want to see the replies coming back to you. I don't want to see any of these handshaking packets. I want to see one type of packet, and it's called the SYN packet. If you write that up on the board, you know, the standard TCP handshaking in order to actually communicate. System A sends a SYN to System B, which acknowledges with a SYN-ACK. And you finally an acknowledgement. This is called the three-way handshake in the TCP world. All I really care about is this guy. And according to Daniel Messler, who I don't know why he would lie to me, says that that's how you do it in TCP dump. Find all SYN packets. And what it's actually doing is he goes into a little more details of what all the different TCP flags are. If you want to delve into that, awesome.
Find the 13th byte in the header.
Yeah, exactly. This gets a little deep for me. So, you know, I took a lot of math back in the day, and I never was really very good at it. But one thing that really stuck with me was the theory of math that I sort of try to apply to a lot of the situations when I'm solving a problem like this. It's the idea that if you can reduce a problem to a previously solved set of existing solutions, you have an answer, right? So if I got one problem up here, if I can say I can get there if I know A, B, and C, and I've already got solutions to A, B, and C, you've got your answer. It may not be the fastest, it may not be the most elegant, right? But you've got an answer. That's the beauty of math. It's building on building on building on building, right? That's how I view Linux on a lot of this stuff. So this guy already figured this out. Great. I'm going to use his solution and plug it into my setup and do what I want to do. So that's how you check for TCP SYN packets with TCP dump.
So I got a question.
Yes.
As I'm looking at these, you're not getting anybody hitting 443 though.
That's right.
Or 8080.
Well,
Or any of the other possible ports. That's exactly right.
I'm just thinking, because, okay, so I go to Facebook today and I bookmark the secure site.
Right.
I never go through
HTTPS,
there
Facebook.com.
Yep.
Well, think about that. I didn't test this, but think about this for a second. If you've ever done any network captures, like with Wireshark or whatever, you can see, you know, most of this stuff we're talking about is plain text, right? Port 80, HTTP is plain text, FTP, Telnet, all these things that we work with, POP3, IMAP, they're plain text by default. SSL is not. So, well, I guess, you know what, you still got to have the IP address.
The DNS.
It's still got to be the SYN. It's still got to say it's a SYN
Yeah.
packet. You're just, and I'm not looking at payload.
No.
So, okay, there's really
The
no
data
reason.
is going to be
can
encrypted,
make
but the
that-
TCP header can't be.
There you go. So there's no reason I couldn't put DST port 80 space and DST space port space 443 and this.
Or.
Oh, sorry. Or, right. You put parentheses around it. That's right. Or, and whatever else. Yeah, I will. I will. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Not
Because
that I wanna
somebody
get
could
around
set up a reflector at their home computer
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
with
But that wouldn't solve this.
Pure
What would this?
connection.
What would this just tell me? I'd say, wow, that guy's sure sending a lot of data to some Cox cable modem, right? I'd have no
But
idea
then
where
you
he's
could
going.
investigate
Yeah, you're right.
further.
You're right.
It raises a flag.
That's true.
Yep.
You'd be
Yep.
the only one investigating anything on Cox's network, though.
Good point.
The only one with enough brain to investigate it.
Okay, so that's great. Already areas where we can improve this process, for sure. Okay, so right now we're just looking at outbound port 80 and if it's a SYN packet. And this syntax, the TCP dump is going to give me a whole bunch of data with it's atomic data, so it's one transaction per line. So I'm going to parse through that with bash with this while read line construct. So inside my do and done loops here, I can refer to the variable $line as that entire packet that I get, or that the output I get from TCP dump. So my first three, I'm just going to parse that with some standard Linux tools and pull off some information. And it's this one, I want to get the source IP. So here's the three variables I'm getting. The source IP, where it came from, the packet time, the exact timestamp, and the destination IP. I already know it's port 80 because that's my filter, right? So I just need those three things. And then I'm going to save that to a file. So I'm just saving variable space, variable space, variable, and I'm outputting it to this output directory. Now I'm putting together a file name here based on the packet time, the source IP, the destination IP. This is a bash thing that is a special variable that is actually the process ID of this current process. Think of this as the poor man's random number. Because every time this script runs, it's going to get a new PID, right? And that PID is an incremental based on what the other processes are running. And so I sort of use this in situations like this when what I don't want to happen is two packets to come in and one overwrites the other with the same name. So I want to make sure the names are unique. Now they're going to be pretty close to unique because this packet time is into the seconds.
It'd take two users hitting the same. Well, it'd
No,
take two
because it's
users from the
same
same source
user.
IP going to the same destination IP at the same
Exactly.
second.
Right.
Wow.
Pretty uncommon. And I make it all that much more uncommon by throwing the double dollar sign on here. So
Pretty.
is that random from a math standpoint? Nope. It's good enough for me. You bet. Okay, and I save it and I'm done. That's it. So this guy runs, and it starts creating files in this directory. And if I just let it run, it'll just create them forever.
Wouldn't you want to clip down your snap link on your TCP dump domain?
Say that again.
Wouldn't you want to clip down your snap link?
Let me rephrase that. Say that in a way that I understand what you're talking about. Clip down your snap
Its
link?
older versions grabs 56 bytes, and then its newer version grabs the entire packet.
Very good. And I certainly don't need the entire packet, right? I need the
You
header.
need the header.
Yeah, you need.
I had no idea you could even do that.
Destination and time is all you got.
Quick, somebody make a note of that. I got to update
That
this.
would,
book.
that would
That's very
speed
good.
up your process.
That would certainly speed up my processing. It'd lower the CPU requirements on this box. Thanks, Bob. That was very good.
Email,
Now-
I don't know how to
He doesn't trust email. That's a great point. Here's another example of how we can make this better. Do I care? Yeah, I do. Is it a problem right now that I'm doing that? No. This box that I'm running this on is an old recovered desktop system from back in the day, and the load on it sits at 0. I mean, this really puts very, very little load in this box. But still, that's good to know. I don't need to waste that processing
If
time.
you're running this at UNL to find out what all the students are
There you
doing,
go.
that
Again,
might be a busier
I got
machine.
65 people doing this. This isn't huge, right?
And they're not all sitting all day surfing the web.
Well, you'd be surprised. But
Work with me here.
No, I wouldn't.
all right, yeah, you probably would. Okay, so that's the capture script. Now I had to make this guy real small, but I'm going to switch back. Okay, so that's the capture script. That's dumping packet files into this directory. Now I got to put them into the database. This is my part 2, right?
What do you want that to your
Yes,
institute?
please. That would be great. Thank you.
You want a quick explanation of what the &2 and whatever does?
Sure.
Go back to the web page of Messler's. Look about in the middle. Well, stop.
Right where your mouse is.
Second bite
Slightly
is not
above,
zero.
yeah, just above example. See the UAPRSF. That corresponds to 3216.8421.
Yep.
Those are the representation of bits in C programming, where you do bitwise checking with an and if you scroll up just a little bit to show just the first TCP dump. Okay, that's good. TCP dump 13 &2 is checking for an S
In that spot.
S for sin.
in that location. Well, it's not checking for a letter S, it's checking for a bit turned on in that
Right.
location, which is equivalent to an S, which means sin.
Gotcha.
The 4, the next one over, would be an R,
Which is
REST,
which is RST.
RST, reset.
They use all
so you're
three.
looking for reset packets.
And then 16 is 2 more over, which is an A and ACK.
Yep. So there you go. So
Those
you
are the 3 that he has an example showing, looking for. That's why you're doing TCP 13 is the 13th byte
Of
in
the header.
array of the header, yeah.
Which you can see down here.
And it's anding with the number 2 if that's non-zero, which means there's a 1 in
Okay.
that bit
So this is actually
location.
bitwise and.
That's a
is what's going
bitwise
on there.
and.
Well, okay.
It's checking to see if there's a bit 1 in that location corresponding to an N, or to an S, which means SYN packet.
There you go.
Or to, any of the other 5 that are up there.
And I guess the one thing you could.
Very simple,
Yeah.
assembler guy thing.
Now
Did
that.
you just use symbol and assemble?
Yes, I did.
First time that's happened all year.
I did it seriously, too.
Now that's cool.
This year my checkbook writers.
Think about this, because we're assuming that no other. Well, let's see. If that and 2, we're assuming that no other field is checked other than sin, right?
Probably in the standard for a TCP header, have to check the RFC.
You shouldn't
There's
ever
only
do that,
one
right?
bit that's turned on at a time.
That's a good point, though. See,
If
here's
there's more than one bit on, it probably means an error.
something's wrong, right? There's an example of we're making an assumption. We're making an assumption that we're never going to see a packet with more than just a sin bit
It
set.
doesn't take very long to find an RFC for TCP.
Yeah, that's true. But what makes me think of that is the Nmap program. If you guys have ever used Nmap, it's the network mapper. It's a port scanning tool. And one of the options it has is called Operating System Fingerprint Identification, the OS fingerprinter. And what these guys did, and God bless them for having this much time in their hands, but they would take a system, so they get Windows NT 4 workstation, whatever, and put it on their network. and they'd bombard it with packets that were outside of the TCP spec. So packets with every one of these, every one of these bits flipped, or SYN and ACK at the same time, or an ACK out of nowhere. And they'd see how that operating system would respond. Now the rules for the TCP RFC don't tell you how you should respond in those situations, because those situations should never happen, right? And so the different implementations of TCP IP on those operating systems, how they answered back to those weird situations, gave the Nmap guys the ability to fingerprint operating systems. They said, oh, every time I send this weird packet to NT4, it responds this way, which is unique to everybody else. You're probably NT4. And now, the how well that's done is a little iffy. It's never going to be exact, but it's really pretty cool that they can even do that.
You can certainly reduce your possibilities.
Right, reduce your solution set by a couple orders of magnitude,
Solaris 2
right?
does one thing, Solaris 3 does something else.
That's exactly right.
NT4 does, and you might get 2 or 3 of them that do the same thing, but still you're going to cut down your possibilities.
Yep. Okay.
Of course, every time a new IP stack comes out for a
You got to do it
operating
again,
system,
right?
NT4 had a couple of IP stacks.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a guess,
now,
right?
Now you got an RC on the IP stack.
Okay, so we have this guy running. He's spitting out files in this of our spool packet capture directory. Now I got to have something that reads this. So here's another shell script, and I just assigned some variables here. Again, if you're going to implement this, you're going to make this specific to your environment. But this DB server could be localhost. If you're running all this on one box, that's fine. Whatever your database, mine's just called master for whatever reason. The table I made is called packet capture. Here's how I do the authentication, and then here's a line that I'm going to use. Okay, so now I change into this directory. Now I'm going to do a while loop here in a bash. And if you've ever done a while loop in programming, you know that what's happening inside these brackets is an evaluation statement, and it's going to evaluate to either true or false. And the while loop will continue to run forever as long as that condition is true. Usually what you see is something like while x is less than 4, right? And then inside the while loop, you increment x. X equals x plus 1. So the loop runs 4 times, right? I'm saying while here 1. In computer science land, 1 responds back to true. This while loop will never end unless I specifically break out of it.
Also known as an infinite loop.
Right. This is an infinite loop.
Intentionally.
It's by design, right?
Not
Because
loops.
I always want to, I've done plenty, not by design.
Yes.
I want to monitor this directory forever, right?
Built to the System 370 ones.
There's a couple ways to do this. Now, I could put this in a cron scheduler, and just say, hey, run once a minute. But what if I'm in a situation where that guy takes longer than a minute to process what's in that directory? Cron is going to start another one, and then another one the next minute, another one.
Collision.
Right, and that's just
Two of them
messy.
are gonna grab
Yeah,
the
I've done
same
it.
file.
It's horrible, right? Right. They're going to try to read the same file, and you're going to wonder why it's not working. So this is a much more. This is a better solution, in that I'm saying, okay, while you're doing something, go ahead and finish it, and then we'll cheat here. And we'll go to the very bottom. The end of my while loop
There you go.
is a sleep 30. So it doesn't just try to do it forever, right? What it does when it first comes up, it takes a snapshot of whatever those packet files are. So there's 30 of them. It says, oh, I got 30 of them. It processes through those 30. Now, while it's processing those, there are more being added, right? But it's only going to process those first 30. It's going to sleep for 30 seconds. It's going to run the while loop again. So this guy will never end. This is the script that never ends. Okay, so for file in startup packet, so every file it sees, and Bash is going to expand this out to every file in there. And here we just do the same things that we did before. I need to get some variables. These are pretty standard. Now, remember, inside that actual packet I had the timestamp. So I'm going to say a variable called file time. And this is one of the reasons I love Linux. Look at this mess. I mean, my God, this is hard to read, right? But look at all these little tools that I'm using. Head, cut,
show you
TR.
this.
Yeah, I know. But this is the cool thing about Linux, right? It's all these little tools that are designed to do one or two things really well, and you chain them all together. And that's what we're doing here. So I just want the first line out of this. I'm going to get the file time, the source IP, destination IP. Now, here's the destination host. Now, I'm sure I could do this better, and I'm still starting to need to work on this a little bit. But what I need to do here is, remember, I only have IP addresses. I specifically told TCP dump not to convert those IP addresses to host names because it would slow it down. But I want to store them in my database as host names because I don't want to give a report to the boss and say, hey, Noel went to 216, 58, 225, 47, 62 times yesterday. That's going to be meaningless, right? I know, how dare you. So I got to convert that back to an actual name. So I do it here on the database import. Again, because I'm not time constrained here. I don't care if it takes 5 minutes for that DNS request to come back, right? I can be 4 or 5 hours behind. I don't care. So I'm using the host command. And the host command does that IP address to name lookup. Now, host also gives you a bunch of other stuff. And so what I end up doing, and I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this, I don't want to see errors. So I say, don't show me lines that say not found, or no servers could be reached, or truncated. So I kind of played around with this a little bit until I got something I was happy with. Because some IP addresses don't resolve to names. So it's just going to be an IP address. So I wanted to honor that. And then if it actually comes back, I tell awk to give me the last field. I grep out where I'm setting out, what is that? Oh, any dots. I don't want any dots in there. And then I don't want anything that resolved to in adder.arpa. So this feels very kludgy to me, and it's not perfect, but it works for now. Okay, the last one here may be a command that you haven't seen before, or maybe haven't used much. I need to get the date of this file, because I want to know, exactly when this file was saved. And there's a number of ways to do that. If you've done Linux from the command line. Geez, I can't zoom. Oh, there we go. You'll know that when you do a long directory listing, you get the date right here. But look at this date. It's not really in a format that's always very parsable. For example, if it's old enough, LS tries to be smart and say, you know what, he probably doesn't care that this guy was created at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He probably cares more that it was created last year. So it shows me a year there instead. So getting a file date from my...
6 months old or older will show
Is that the
a
rule?
year. Yes.
Okay.
Instead of a hour, minute.
So that's messy. I don't want to try to parse this output, right? So what I'm using instead is the stat command. Stat. Stat is a really cool command. It'll give you more information than you ever wanted on a file. And it takes a million different options. And what I'm passing here, the C says I'm going to give you, you're giving it a format string, sort of like printf in C. You're giving it a format string saying, only show me this data. And I'm saying %Z, which in this case is the actual file, or the timestamp of the file. And then I only want to see the first field, so I use cut to give you that. Okay, and then here is where, okay, so what do I have? I have the IP address back to an actual host name. Now I still have the source IP address. I need to convert that to a username because I want to log that it was Bob that hit this website, not 192.168.1.4, right? And this kind of thing, and there's two ways to do this. You can have a master user lookup table of IP addresses to names, and I could store just the IP address in the database. And when I run the report, it can dynamically replace the IP address with the name, right, in real time. A simple SQL join between two tables. But the problem with that is employees change. And you may have been at this IP address 6 months ago, but now you're at this IP address over here. Or maybe you're not at the company.
Multiple computers
right.
as part of their job.
So the username to IP address mapping is time sensitive. It's not always going to be the same person. Maybe your environment it is. I don't know. Maybe you've got a static setup and this is easy to do. I didn't. Mine changes. So I had to do, and this will be the third shell script, I had to do yet another shell script to maintain this table that is a mapping of usernames to IPs. And I update that every 5 minutes. I think that's often enough. That keeps track of that. If it's a static one, I can manually put it into the table, and then it'll come back. Otherwise, I actually create it automatically. You can create that a number of ways depending on what your environment is. I mean, the ideal way would be to bounce that against like your authentication service, like if you have Active Directory or LDAP or something like that, to ask it, hey, what username just logged in from this IP address, right? We don't have a system-wide environment like that, but we do have one file server that everybody hits and everybody has an account on, and it's a Linux box running Samba, and there's a command you can run on that box called SMB status that will give you a list of all the people that are currently connected to that authentication, and it gives their IP address. So that's my sort of poor man's username to IP address mapping. And I just run that every few minutes, and I update the table, and it works. Okay, so we'll look at that script next.
Directory system probably has something like that.
You would think. Now, we have an Active Directory environment upstairs. I have no clue how to query it programmatically from this. Maybe there's a way. I don't know.
talk to a C#.net.
Exactly. And then we get into the compiled languages, and I say, okay, I need a developer for this. This is supposed to be something a sysadmin can do, right? A sysadmin hack like me, not a real programmer. So it's a simple, select username from username to IP where IP equals this. So I get the username back, and we'll look at that table here in a little bit. Okay, here's timestamp. For some reason when I was testing this, I had some 0 timestamp, so I say if it's that, I don't want it. And then I get here's my actual SQL insert. So here's what's going into the actual table. Insert into this table, and here's my fields. Timestamp, source IP, destination host, and username. So I already mapped IP to host, and I already mapped source IP to username, but I'm storing them all in there anyway. And then the actual values. And I'm just echoing that to the MySQL line up there, and I'm removing my temp file. And once I get through those initial runs of packet files, I sleep for 30 seconds, and I go on forever.
Adam,
Yes?
for somebody that wants to keep track of IP username in, without the Samba,
Yes.
when you log in, it runs a system profile and the user profile from the user's home directory, the system profile.
When you log into like a Linux workstation?
Yeah.
Yes. Bash _ login and .bash_rc.
You could have it
There you go.
echo username,
You bet.
IP address into something, stick it in a SQL database if
There
you
you
really
go.
want to. But
Or if you're in a Windows-
a simple text
There you go.
file is so easy to deal with.
Yep.
And you could have log watch rotate them daily
Yep.
and stuff like that.
That would be a perfect solution. You're in
And
a Windows environment. Put it in the Windows logging script to have a batch file that runs the, what is it on Windows, IP config? IP config? I never remember. IP config on Windows. And parse that, get the IP, map it to the username. Yeah.
Got no clue.
Yeah. Right, lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
There's probably a better way for my environment, but this one was quick and dirty, and it was like a 4-line shell script. That's my
Which is where you
requirement
live
for
really
good
well.
programming is a small shell. Yes. Okay. So I've got the packet capture. I've got the host lookup. I've got the importing into the database. Let's look at the actual username to IP mapping. This is a short one. This is it. How do I connect to the server? Here's where I run SMB status. I don't want to see any errors. And then I do some weird sed stuff to actually get it formatted right. I'm grepping I'm egrep. This means the start of the line. So any number 1 through 6. Let's actually do this so we can figure this out.
Would it happen from between 1 and 6 times?
Yes. So I'm going to. Nobody look at my password. It was all stars. Did you see it?
Wow. It was only 2 characters.
I know. No, I just typed really fast. Okay,
And
so
I'm almost deaf and I can still hear that.
if I run, no, it wasn't 2 characters. If I run SMB status on this guy, here's what I'm working with. Username, IP address. So I've got to pull out this data. And what I want is just the actual username without this domain stuff on the front. I want just the username and a space and just the IP address, and that's it. So that's what my script is doing here. Okay, egrep, I'm looking for lines that start with numbers, because this process, I only want to see lines that start with these numbers here, because this is a process ID of the Samba, so that's how I'm filtering this out. I could have grepped for like capital Omaha /. And then this is a regular expression that matches an IP address. Imperfectly, but for my purposes, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Any number, 1 to 3 of them. Now this wouldn't work because this would be perfectly fine with the IP address of 999.999.
Yeah, you got no error check, but
Yeah.
it's got to write it anyway.
But right, who cares, right? I'm never
It
going to see that.
Pulls a 3.3.3.3 format.
Right. And then I want to parse this out with awk, saying space delimited, only show me field number 2 and then number 6 and put a space between it. Remove any parentheses. And then so that line, and then I pass that to my while statement. So let's just do this command all by itself.
Where's
Could
your
have done that on
your
this.
Omaha /?
You could have truncated.
I took it out because I took it out just for the purposes of this presentation because I didn't want this to be more confusing than it already was. My production one actually has the removing the Omaha /. Let's do this a piece at a time. So we already ran the status. Let's actually run it with the sed now and see what it looks like. See how it's different. I'm going to pipe it through more so we can see what's going on here. Doesn't look a whole lot different. What is that set command doing? Searching for space or a tab and then, oh, right.
Because the first three lines.
Because look at this.
Samba,
Not
kid.
every line starts with a number. Some of them, for whatever stupid reason the guys that wrote this program, some of them start with a space.
Well,
So
they,
I need to
they
make
want
sure
to have it columnized.
they want to have it
correctly.
right delimited. Who right delimits data?
Somebody who's gonna add up
You're
all
wrong.
those kids and put it in the bottom line of their account.
Yes, I'm sure it's fine.
Because
Okay,
my
they
left
should
side's
be-
almost useless, I like to have them lined up.
They should be
It's easier to
assuming that they're
follow.
writing this program for me, clearly, so I can parse it, and they're
Well,
not.
but Adam,
Yes.
isn't that also, if you go back and look at it, is it getting rid of those top three lines, samba, pid, and dashes?
Yes.
It's skipping those also.
Yes. So there's more than that. So if I run that again, well, no.
No?
No, the next one is. The next grep is.
Oh,
This
okay.
just says search for at the beginning of the line either a space or a tab, and then anything else, and replace it with, or no, I'm sorry, 0 or more space or tab, and replace it with nothing. So when I run this, they'll all be left justified now. There. Okay.
You smart.
See, there's a method to my madness. Now let's do the next one.
Well,
Now here is where I only want to see lines that start with
start
numbers.
with numbers.
Now you trim out the headers.
This will trim out the headers right here, because I only want to see lines that start with numbers.
Yeah, okay.
So I've only got lines that start with numbers. Remember, this is way one of the 500 different ways to do this.
Only 500?
Well, 502, but okay. Here is the search for IP addresses, right? I added that guy. Pipe it through more. Now I've just got lines that have this format in it. Remember, I just want this and this. Now I add the awk to give me 2 and 6. Whoops.
Wouldn't it be easier just to grab?
I guarantee it would be.
Got
What are
an
you gonna
IP address and then chuck that first line?
Say that again.
Just run SMB status without any of this other stuff, wouldn't
And
it?
just search for an IP address.
Grab anyone
Yeah.
that's got an IP address.
I think
chuck
there was
the
a
first
reason I
line.
didn't do that. I
I
think
don't know, maybe there's other stuff that could show up in there.
I think they put there was some.
From a calculation standpoint.
That's not an
that'd
IP
be an
address, I just saw
efficient
numbers.
You're
code.
right.
You'd be running that search over and over again instead of grabbing
Yes,
the
look at all
data.
this.
Oh, here's this though.
There's
Oh,
some
this
places
crap.
in there where
SMB
you have,
status is showing this service stuff here that has IPs in there. I just want to see the logins.
Okay.
I knew there was a reason I did that. All right, here's the
Okay, an IP address inside parentheses.
here's the awk. Right, don't want the parentheses.
No, but search for an IP address inside parentheses.
Would that do it every time?
Yeah.
All of those were,
Yep, it sure would, wouldn't it?
See,
So I could
what's
replace
going
this
on
all
on
with-
the right-hand side here is you got the actual IP address, and then if there's a host name
If it resolves
somewhere that
something.
it can resolve.
So I could have done this
it
whole
puts
thing
it
with
there.
one regex
Yeah,
that said
if
parentheses
you go,
IP
if you go down
address.
to the other place where there's IP addresses, all those IP addresses are not inside parentheses.
You're right.
They're an IP address or
There
a
you go.
host name.
and that's the beauty of Linux.
That's right.
That's-
So that would have been a much more efficient way. Rather than piping this
Then
through
you only
grep,
got to
grep,
search
grep.
for one thing with grep.
It's one grep. You're right. That's a better way to do this. Okay. Good
I don't
job.
know why he's-
I just saved a couple of
You
processes.
did. You saved a few cycles right there. Saved a few cycles. All right, the last one here is telling TR to remove the parentheses.
If he gave us the opportunity.
And there it is. Username space IP address. Okay? That gets, and then I say, while read username space IP. And I'm using now this is specific, this right here is specific to MySQL if you're familiar with databases. As far as I know, again, not a DBA, as far as I know, the replace command is not ANSI SQL compliant. It's a MySQL specific thing. So if you're using Postgres or something, you may have to change this. But what this basically does is it replaces 2 SQL statements. Because I don't know if this data exists in here already. I don't know if this username exists in here already. If it does, I want to update it. If it doesn't, I want to insert it. So replace does both. It checks to see if the data exists already. If it does, it updates. If it doesn't, it inserts. Pretty handy. It's kind of slow from a SQL standpoint, but it's one line, so I'm happy with it. So
that's
I
what
insert it.
That in actual code is a long thing.
Yeah, to do it without replace, right, is ugly. So I like that.
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking of is what would the C code look like to execute replace? That's a lot of code.
Yeah.
you need a transaction probably. to-
Lots of
right?
I/O.
Well, right, and you know that you mentioning that brings up a good point. again, not an optimized solution at all, because every single one of these packets is creating a new connection to the database, authenticating, putting the data in, and then tearing the connection down. I mean, horribly inefficient, right? I don't care. Okay, so that we actually have the data.
And I was worried about saving a couple of processes.
I know. And I've spent them like you wouldn't believe. Okay, this guy's a little too big to show here, so I just put links here. And I put it .txt, even though it's a PHP script, so you can actually download it. And then this does actually use a date.js library that one of my developers wrote that gives you a nice little calendar selection for the date. It's optional, but it's kind of handy. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is the PHP. I include the date.js, and then here's the actual PHP code. This is all just being this is a single PHP form that submits back to itself. So it's not input and then output, it just submits to itself. So it's assuming that if there's stuff on the query string, it's going to actually use it. I'm doing this function just to make sure nobody's trying to do SQL injection on me, right? The little Bobby tables. And then I have a function that actually does all the work here. And this is, I mean, we don't really have to go through it. It's pretty simple. All it's doing is saying, hey, I'm letting the user craft a SQL statement to say, hey, only show me traffic from this username bounded by this date and this date, is all this is. And I also have the option of, if they select all as a username, I don't put a username requirement in there, so I see traffic from everybody. Okay, so I mean, you guys can go through this at your leisure. Here's the, one other thing I do. You know, think about a lot of the sites you go to now, it'll be like something dot yahoo.com, right? And that something could be like a proxy server, and it's a different name. So if I just have those huge host names right here that the host command gave me, then maybe the first 10 sites you went to are all something.yahoo.com. Well, that's not really that useful. I really just need to see that you went to yahoo.com.
Yeah, your boss doesn't
right?
understand an FQDN.
Exactly.
They just want to see yahoo.com.
So what I did, and here's the actual page. This is the front end for the report. I have that option say don't truncate the host name. By default, it's going to snip that off, and it's only going to show the something dot something. If you don't want that for whatever reason, you can check that, and then it shows the whole thing. And it's just, all it does is flip back and forth between two different SQL statements. And this got a little interesting. If you've never done SQL before, you can do some pretty funky stuff in here. So let's look with this one. If you want to see the detail, it's actually a simpler one. The field I'm searching for in the table is called DST host, the destination host. I want to select the count, and I'm going to name it my count, and then I'm selecting destination host, and I'm going to name it this, so I can refer to it as a string. From this table, where the username, well, okay, yeah, here's where I have the username variable in there, and then my timestamp. So the timestamp is less than or equal to this, or greater than or equal to this, and less than or equal to this. So there's my between. And the destination host is not null, and it doesn't equal nothing. Group by the destination host and order by the count descending. So you get the most at the top. That's pretty simple. Now, here I had to do a little substring function here to say I only want to see, I want to take the host, but I only want to see the last bits that have a dot in the middle. So this would go to yahoo.com. This would go to Amazon.com or whatever.
You get screwed when you go to a UK site. .co.uk.
Yep. Well, luckily I live in America, and not a lot of my users go to any of these other sites. You're right. This is not a perfect solution at all. But I'm saying, hey, take that DST host, and on the substring index, look for a dot and go back to. So this would give me, from this, it would be yahoo.com. And otherwise it's the same. Okay, and then I run the actual, and then I do the query. This is just standard PHP code. I'm spitting out some HTML here. I'm throwing in a table. Yes, I still use tables for layout. Don't shoot me. Okay, and then I walk through the results here and spit it out into TDs. That's the actual function. The actual code itself then is pretty simple. You just identify your variables for the MySQL database. Oh, here's the query, because I have to populate that dropdown with all the user lists. So here's where I query that username from this, order by that. And then I spit it out right here. I'm not going to go through all these. We'll see it in action. Here's where I call in the JavaScript calendar control. You'll see that in a second. Okay, and then the submit. And then I have a hidden field called search. The value is yes. And then here's all that build up for this 4 lines of code. If the search value is passed in the query string, it actually just calls this function, which does all the work. All right, so let's see it in action. So this is the reporting interface. Now I just noticed this the other day. I have to get a little bit more intelligent with my SMB status parsing because it's actually giving me machine accounts as well as user accounts. And then a $sign, I need to filter that out. So let's say, let's see, Chad. This should be interesting. Notice this live data. I really have no idea what's going to come up here. Chad's one. I wish Chad was here. He's one of my sysadmins. This would have been great to put him on the spot.
You don't do JV.
And here's that little calendar control. Again, I could just type a date in here, but the list looks prettier. So we'll say all of September. So September 1, midnight to right now. And again, I'm not having minutes in here. That wasn't important. This is just by day. So I say go. This takes a minute or two. I've got a couple months worth of data in here, so it takes a little bit to parse. Again, I could archive this yearly or whatever, but
Nope, something very-
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Looks like he was only going to places in.
Oh, you know what?
He was on vacation.
He's been gone for 2 months.
That's really weird. I wonder why that didn't return much. Let's try a
He's
different
the
user.
one that did the SQL injection.
It's possible. Maybe he found out where this table was and he's been deleting his IP entries. I don't know. I don't know why that was very small. Here's one of our sales guys. I did this earlier. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here it is. Very first one. Again, this count is number of SYN packets requested to this domain. Omaha.org. That's less than useful, right? 1e100.net. All right. You see the problem that we have, and here we see the problem we have with this. There's a lot of big hosting companies that host a lot of these sites, or maybe images for these sites, that filter to the top, right? Akamai Technologies is one. Whenever you pull up a photo on Facebook, it's not actually being served off Facebook.com. It's served off one of the Akamai Technology web farms. Southwest.com. Al must have been looking for airline tickets at one time or another. Amazon AWS. So again, what we're looking for here is not like detailed level information I can use to do litigation against somebody, right? I don't know if our users are messing around on Facebook. Is pretty much the impetus for this report. So it doesn't need to be super crazy detailed. This is enough. Now let's see the difference between if I check this little guy, don't truncate the host name, select Alan again. You can see the difference.
It'll be a lot longer because there won't be as many identicals.
That's exactly right. It's a lot longer. First one, cms.omaha.org is our contact management system. That's where all the sales leads are. I hope that he's going to that site more than any of them. Yeah, so you can get a little, but see, this is what I'm talking about. This mpr.mgd.vip.ac4.yahoo.com. I don't know what that is. It's probably Yahoo Mail. He's probably checking his Yahoo Mail. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
So maybe that's less than useful, right? But yeah, this has been useful in the past. Just for the simple, well, like I had to have a little talk with an intern a couple months ago whose Facebook.com was #1 on his. Oops. Said I'm not paying you to do that, right? So again, lots of, so what have we learned? Lots of ways this could be better. Lots of different options we can throw in here. Lots of ways we can make this more robust. I can think of a million different awesome reporting options we could throw in here, right? Yes.
So
Charlie.
you said this is one you came up with.
Yes.
Is there anything off the shelf? That
No.
goes-
Is there anything up? No. This is all, it's TCP dump, bash, MySQL, and SMB status.
So,
And sed, awk, cut, grep. 3 shell scripts and a PHP script.
There is nothing. There is no vendor that sells this type of service at all.
Yes, the vendor's name is Adam Haeder. He can offer you a low price on this. No. I'm sure there are. There's tools that do this, right? Maybe not exactly this way. Maybe not that fit into my environment so quickly. Like I said, I literally started this at noon on Friday. I had it implemented by like 4 that afternoon. End to end. The whole thing. Including the reporting interface. That was the beauty of this solution for me. Shoot, I still could have been, comparing vendors on
yeah, you would have
Yelp
spent more time than
after
that
4 hours.
looking at the offerings that's commercially available.
Exactly. That's not
And then you
always
gotta
the
spend
answer.
money.
I have learned the hard way over the years that it's not, building it yourself is not always the answer. It's still the answer I usually default to, but it's not, it pains me to say it sometimes, but it's
Depends
not
on how complicated
always
it
the
is.
answer. Yes.
Say hello to John, he's watching.
Oh, hi John. Hi John. Everybody say hi to John.
Hi,
Say hi John.
Hi, John.
So yeah, this worked out very well. Now, this is the kind of thing, it was, like I said, a quick and dirty thing. If this is the beginning, some of you I know have been in this situation, if this is the beginning of a bigger project, if this, sometimes these things gain traction and then they're like, oh wow, now I've got 17 people using this all the time, and this used to be hosted on my little workstation over here, and it's going to grow, then you have to sort of reevaluate things. And a lot of times the problems you have in the corporate world is these things sort of tend to grow out of control. And then 5 years later, you've got a team of developers maintaining it, and the code base is so bad it makes people want to poke their eyes out, And there's all kinds of stories like that.
Well, yeah, but I saw your comment.
You saw my what?
I saw the comment you put in it.
The code should comment itself, Craig. Come on. It's not that long.
I'm also
The code itself
I'm
is
a
a
tall,
comment.
leggy blonde. Yeah.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Sound like an assembly programmer I used to know.
Okay. Oh yeah, we gotta look at this. Here's the username, the IP mapping script. Oh, here's the table definitions. Pretty simple. Username to IP. I want to store. Wait. The username and the IP. In this case, usually when you're doing a table like this, you have some sort of an auto-incrementing ID for your primary key. In this case, I just wanted a username because I only want to know right now what IP address you're in. Because I store that username in the database. If I did that real-time lookup thing, I wouldn't do it that way. But I didn't. Here's the packet capture one. There I am doing my actual ID there. Timestamp, source, destination, dest host, username, primary keys ID. Auto increment 1. How can I beef this up? Monitor other traffic. I could certainly do 443. I'll have to put that in, see how it works. All kinds of other stuff. We don't use a lot of FTP anymore. How about BitTorrent? Nobody cares. That's only 40% of all the traffic on the internet. Nobody cares about that.
Well, not today.
Somebody talked to me about this one. Could I do that? Could I use this system to monitor BitTorrent?
Yeah.
What's a BitTorrent port?
There are several.
There are several. Okay.
Yeah.
So I get a list of what those are, and I log all them. Let's say I get really mean and I block them at my firewall. What do the BitTorrent clients do? They run over HTTP.
Route around it.
So that's one of the reasons that BitTorrent is so notoriously hard to block, is because it's an intelligent protocol, and if it can't find a way out, it'll run over HTTP.
Of course, if you block them at your firewall, you funnel them into your trap.
If I block them at my firewall, then it's going to go.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Unfortunately, then this solution isn't going to tell me that this traffic was a web browser versus a BitTorrent client, right? I guess
have all kinds of stuff in there because all those peers will show up.
you're right, but I'm not familiar enough with the BitTorrent protocol to know if that's going to generate a whole boatload of SYN packets to make it bubble up. Will it?
It will.
Okay.
I'm torrenting three torrent ISOs at home right now, and the number of packets that are in closed wait status is from here to the ceiling.
Okay. So it does generate. Okay. So maybe that would be. So if you're doing that, those would funnel to the top, and you assume they probably wouldn't be Yahoo.com and AmazonAWS.com, right? It'd be something in the Netherlands or.
Part of the part of the package, I would
Say
think
about-
even when it's over 48, tells you
That's right. Then I'd have to start getting into actual packet inspection, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if that's a route I want to go. There's commercial tools out there that are really, really good at that and are going to be able to do it a lot better than me in a stupid little bash script. So, some other things. Now, this would be an interesting one. I'm sort of the part-time systems guy for my church as well. And they had a situation the other day where they got put on an email blacklist, and they wanted to know why. And I said, well, you're either, you've either got somebody identified an email you sent out as spam, maybe inadvertently or incorrectly, or you've got one of your users inside your network that has a Trojan horse virus, something on their system that's being used as a spam relay. I said, let's investigate that second one first. They have a setup similar to this. They have a Linux box as their gateway for an internal network of only about 40 people. And so I logged into that box, and I ran a really cool little console-based packet sniffer called IPTRAF, IPTRAF. It's really nice. And I just attached it to the, I attached it to the outbound interface, because they have 3 NICs in here, the outbound interface. And I just wanted to see what was going on. I didn't put any filters in place. I was just like, is there anybody really crazy high? And immediately, this one IP address was at the very top of the list, just doing huge amounts of traffic. And it was like some weird high UDP port that was totally non-standard. It was like 19,807 or something. And I was like, all right, what's going on there? And they didn't have, they have a Microsoft DHCP server. I didn't, and I'm SSH'd in on a console. I had no idea how to turn that IP into a name or a machine name or anything. So I emailed the guy back and I was like, all right, find out who this IP is and see what's going on. And while he was doing that, I put an IP tables row in place to block it and everything. And they traced it back to this kid who was helping. There's some kid who was helping the youth coordinator. He had a virus on his system, and it was sending out all this spam. And so that kind of thing, maybe I could monitor. You know, not specifically looking for any traffic, but maybe you put some threshold rules in place and say, hey, you know. And this is where you start really thinking about capacity planning, right? Step one of capacity planning is establishing a baseline. And then step two is identifying rule sets that notify you when that baseline deviates from the norms that you've set up, right? So we identify a snapshot baseline of this is what my network traffic looks like. And then you say, oh, okay, if your IP address goes over this many megabytes of data per day, or bursts up to this, or hits this port, you know, whatever rules you come up with that identifies it as deviant behavior, then you have your notification system trip and say, hey, something's wrong, right? That's the whole theory behind intrusion detection systems like Snort and things like that. So could we add this to this? Sure. Is this something I really want to do? Not really. I think this is sort of a tool that fits very well. I don't really want to take it any further, but it's possible. We could do all kinds of funky graphs. We could do this would be something that may be nice. Right now, this is a passive system. I have to go in there and search for it and monitor it. You know, maybe we put some sort of an active monitoring system in place and ping the right people when something bad happens.
Overnight batch processing and email the results.
There you go. So that'd be an option. You know, all kinds of fun things. But again, the cool thing about this is that all these would be, you could do all this stuff. And again, I'm not a computer programmer. I'm just a hacker that sort of figured some of this stuff out, and the tools are all there. The tools are all there for you to use. If you want to dig into it, it's available. You can do it. If you want to expand on this, more power to you. That's me. Any more questions on any of that? Not so much. Rob.
I think you ought to leave your system usernames in there, so that if something does get some Trojan in there that's using the system account.
Oh, the workstation accounts.
Yeah. It might show up there.
Yeah, that's a good point. If the user is logged off and they don't have any open Samba connections, well, my update to that username to IP mapping never does a remove. So if you were logged in and you had an open connection and you shut your workstation down and go home, I still know what your IP address was until you come in the next day and you
Until
get a new
somebody
IP.
comes in at any time and turns the machine back on, so the IP address gets replaced in the database.
Nope, because my key on that table is username, it's not IP.
Oh.
So I could have two different usernames to the same IP.
Yeah. Yeah, because today he's using it, tomorrow he's sick. I came
Right,
in to use it
right.
because my machine broke.
So what I guess the point I'm making is I don't know if I'd necessarily need to have machine accounts, because I'm always going to know what who the last user was that connected to a Samba share from that IP address, because I'm not doing any delete from that table.
Oh, but I mean, I guess I thought you were talking about this, and oftentimes you know a machine's infected if you notice that nobody's logged in and it's generating a lot of traffic.
Right, but I'm going to know. Oh, I see what you mean. I'd still know who the last person logged in was, though. Oh, okay, but
Which might have nothing to do with what's causing the problem.
you're right. Which would have nothing to do. Okay, you're right. So I should. Yeah, I guess what I'd want then is maybe a secondary report on that page that would show most traffic for today, right? Which IP address has generated the most traffic for today, and it happens to be a workstation IP. Then yeah, maybe something's wrong on there, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Could be a virus that activates on September 7th.
There you go.
It's been sitting there idle for 6 months.
That's right. That's very possible.
Your MySQL client command line has the password on the command line,
Yeah.
which anyone on that box can see.
Oh yeah, it's totally horrible. You're right.
Another thing would be
Yep.
to
That's a problem with hitting MySQL from Bash, is you've got to pass the authentication on the command line.
somehow.
Okay,
but
yeah.
if you put it in a file and then check that file appropriately.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. All these scripts that I have right here are only readable by root. But that does bring up a very good point. Is there a is that like the .my.cnf or something in your home directory or something?
And I'm not sure offhand what the option is to say use this other file.
Oh, but you can tell it to, hey, look here instead, and make sure that's a good point. I should probably do that. Again, I get kind of lazy about that stuff because there's only 3 of us in the company that even know the root password. So you're right. I get kind of lazy about that, but I should be locking that down a little bit more.
3 that you know of.
Well, we change it about every 6 months, so I'm pretty
That's all?
pretty sure. Yeah.
I used to enforce monthly changes on all the users.
Oh my God, my users will kill me. We do 90 days on the users. I know.
We do 6 months.
I didn't care.
One last question.
Yes.
How come you didn't use Untangle?
Say that again.
Untangle? You ever looked at that?
Never heard of it.
It's an open source based thing that has all these plugins that show up in the virtual rack.
What is it? Like a network monitoring solution?
It's a gateway.
Oh, okay. Actually run it as the gateway.
Antivirus, anti-spam.
Cool. Because I'd never heard
I'm
of
just
it.
curious, have you ever looked at that?
No, I never
And
have.
you still decided to write your own?
No. No, I guess, again, back to the reasons why I didn't went with my own solution. I have a big enough ego that I like to think that I can do this stuff pretty quickly and easily. I enjoy doing it, and I've been doing these sort of little things enough for AIM for long enough that I know that most of the time it takes me less time to do something from scratch than it would be to modify something that exists to fit our weird environment.
And it was Friday afternoon.
And it was Friday afternoon, and I was looking for something to do, and so I did that. No, it's not. No, I had this whole list of things to do, but they weren't nearly as interesting as doing this.
Now
You were looking for
So I did
something
this.
more fun
Yes,
to do.
and that's exactly right. Okay, administrative things. Some of you were here for this. My company has a IT Leadership Academy coming up. The final date for it is this week. See, I have the info right here if you're interested. Take a look at that. There's a handout here. Please sign the sign-up sheet if you get a chance. It's not so I can contact you. I don't even want your contact info. I just want your name so we can log it at the end of the year that we as a nonprofit organization serve this many people in this capacity. We get some sort of, we get something good for it. I don't know.
Get bonus points.
Yeah, we get an extra life. I don't know. It's an extra guy at the end of the level. I need topics for next month, so I thought about locking the door and not letting it go until we came up with one, but I won't do that. So.
I actually think I'm on there for next month.
Oh, you are? What are you talking about?
I don't know.
I don't know. To be decided. Craig's going to talk next month.
Thin
Oh,
clients.
nice.
And actually,
Very cool.
I will have Eagle here.
Thin clients is the topic for next month. Oh, that's right. You're going to have the vendor come in to show off a thin client solution.
What they'll bring in is
Very
they'll bring in
nice.
those Plano devices. We'll get to play with. I think
That's
you
very
can bring
nice. Does
in
anybody
different
do thin client stuff in their work right now?
Used to.
forms.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody used to, right? Everybody used to. Not anymore, though. It feels like it's
This
coming
is
back,
to
right?
the good old days.
Yeah. I grew up on a
Screens were
Unix
green.
thin client. You bet.
Screens were green and
I miss my old
graphics
backs.
were for weenies.
But yeah, it seems like that pendulum is sort of swinging back now with all this cloud-based stuff, right? Why do I want to manage a fat system when everything's in the cloud anyway, right? So cool. That'll be a great topic.
Have a thin window manager with just basic,
Yep.
Well,
nothing fancy graphics because you're not supposed to be playing, World of
That's right.
Warcraft on
No
that
OpenGL.
machine.
There's different takes on what thin client means.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know,
There
one
used
of
to be
the,
a pretty hard definition of that.
one thing I'm gonna talk about, which technically, depending on your religion for thin client, is the Stoneware software that I use for the school district. That in a way is a thin client because
Okay.
we're trying to get away from, I don't give a rat's ass what's here if I can, whether it's Windows, Linux, Mac. You're gonna approach all your stuff from the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So traditional thin client, not in any way, shape, or form.
Gotcha.
Is it a type of thin client?
But yeah, still fulfills the functions of a
I'm
thin
trying to
client.
get away from this guy.
Very interesting. Well, that'll be good.
To me, a thin client is no hard drive and
Boot over the
minimal graphics.
Hence the word religion.
Ah.
That's what, it used to be, it wasn't even graphics, it was just a video card because, back then, a Trident 256 was a high-end graphics card.
And there'll be snackies.
Even better.
Even better.
That's why I like having vendors show up.
Hercules card, no hard drive. Mega Graham is good.
They're Hercules guys. Last little plug for me. I do teach a Linux Systems Administration class in this very room. But we do it sort of on an as-needed basis. If that's something that you're interested in, your company is, let me know. It's based around the Linux Professional Institute, the LPI certification, which I also happen to have written a book on. So it's back there, right there as well. Just came out a couple months ago. So if that's thank you, Vanna, thank you, Vanna, right there. And if you buy one, I'll even give you a second. That's right, and Craig even helped review it.
I get the book on my Safari bookshelf.
Very good. And the errata is already pouring in. I missed like 5 mistakes in the proofreading. I couldn't believe it. How many times I read that stupid
Edition
book.
2.
I'm like, how could I have missed that? Okay.
How much new information is going to be included
That's
in
it.
Edition 2?
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, this is version 3 actually.
Yeah.
It's the first version came out in 04. And then 06. I was a contributing author in the second edition in 06, and this is version 3, which is all brand spanking new. Yes, please do. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thanks, everybody. Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please do.
I'm visiting from out of town, to see my father, who lives in the Lakeside Retirement Community out west.
Okay.
And I've installed Linux on a couple machines out there, which is ideal for senior citizens as well as for everybody else. But anyway, of course, what everybody wants to know is, where can I get support? And they can't get it at Best Buy. So is there anybody here, or any individuals here who would be interested in doing Linux support at a retirement community? Please talk to me so I can get your contact information.
Okay, great. There you go. If anyone wants to talk to them about doing Linux support, we usually either hang out here and talk, or there happens to be a restaurant/bar just a few doors down that we usually end up going over to. So I think some of us are going to go over there right now. Would you like to join us? Come along.
Sigmair.
There. But that's great. If nothing else, I would recommend. Yeah, I say if nothing else, I'd recommend joining the mailing list. The website is olug.org, and it's got a pretty active mailing list. We've got, geez, I don't know.
If you don't get
300 or
somebody
350
like under
people.
contract, you could just post there and somebody ad hoc.
Yeah, there's always people willing to help in certain situations.
You got
like
such
that.
and such a problem, and
But I'm
somebody
su-
might know something about it.
I'm
and
sure
they'll
if they're
come over
looking
and
for
just
some
do
sort of a
one-time deal.
right, I'm sure if they're looking for some sort of a long-term support, that there'd be people interested in doing that. A lot of people do that kind of stuff on the side. So yeah, that's great. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
See y'all next door.
See ya.
For my own fairness purposes.
See ya. Oh, let's see if that download's done.
Adam, real quick,
Yeah.
just pop this in, should.
Yeah, if you just pop that guy in and boot to, I got your Ubuntu one right here. Let's wait 2 minutes and burn it. No, I'll do it. I have no like one in there. It's just kind of the time of year we. Oh, here we go. I don't know which one it is. ASCD. That sounds promising. It doesn't have the burning tool that I usually use.
I think another thing I had was
Really? Oh, you must have an old version. I wouldn't. Oh, that's not the right one. You know what? I may have to burn this and then hook up with you some other time to get it to you. If that's all right. Try this guy out. I like Fedora a lot. I've got it on my systems at home.
That's okay.
And it'll work fine. It'll recognize your Windows partition. It'll do dynamic repartitioning. Well, I guess you have screwed up installation anyway. So are you going to keep Windows on at all?
Probably not.
Okay. Then you just blow it away and just do a full install, and it's pretty easy. So yeah, good luck. Yeah, let me know how it goes.
Will do.
Sam, how are you?
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Okay. I was trying. Are you familiar with Microtech?
It's a hardware company, right?
They sell these little tiny routers, VPN server router devices. That they,
Okay. Is that the little thing that you had at the
No.
little embedded system? Okay, it's not.
No,
Okay.
that's the and hammer on.
Okay. So Microtech, they have a little VPN router.
It's microtech.com.
Okay.
It's the website.
Uh-huh.
But okay, I was installing one. When I installed it, I might not have taken some precaution correctly. I was installing that, turned my wireless router, used that as an access point. Just turned that
Gotcha.
access point mode. Decided to use that as DHCP, make it so, I just have...
And you turned off DHCP on your other guy when you made him an access point.
Right.
Okay.
I use the because okay, our church has a VPN set up. We're using these little things called end computing. You're familiar with them?
And what?
End computing.
And computing.
They're kind of a thin client device.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Sunrise?
Oh yeah, I have a Sunray at home. Yeah, an old one.
Our church used Sunrise until the guy who
Okay.
does it, which I helped set up the.
On Solaris or Linux?
We were
Sunrise.
using Solaris, then we went to Linux,
Okay.
then we went back to Solaris,
Okay.
then we found end computing,
Okay.
which runs on Windows and Linux.
Oh, okay.
You have to use Ubuntu, but hey, Ubuntu's good for the end user.
Sure.
But so I was thinking, because they don't have built-in VPN, you can really connect to them as long as you have some kind of connection.
Okay.
So I was thinking, and thing is, the server also has RDP.
Okay.
So I was thinking,
There's your remote desktop.
right? So VPN and RDP, then I just pop on.
Yeah.
Then I'm already on there. Thing is, I've already kind of, because I like the idea of using the end computing devices, because we have places, it would be impractical to fit a huge full-size computer.
And the end computing device would just be primarily to connect via VPN, and then our desktop to an actual fat client box sitting behind the VPN.
It doesn't even use our desktop, no. But the computer I would use to connect it would use RDP to connect to it.
Okay.
Now, the end computing
Thanks for coming, you guys.
uses this weird proprietary protocol developed by the people who.
For the client and server
Right.
communication. Okay.
But as long as I can connect to the network that the server's on, then I'm
you can
fine.
do normal IP. Okay.
Right. So, but we're going to end up installing. We were going to end up installing end computing systems around the house because they're cheaper,
Right.
they're easier to manage,
Yeah.
and I can just use regular old Windows for my mom. My dad's getting more comfortable with Linux.
That's cool. And just like want to have one in like every room of the house or something, right?
Well, not every room,
But yeah, I know what you
the
mean.
guest room.
I know what you mean. I've sort of been thinking about coming up with a solution for that too. So yeah, the end computing stuff. I'll have to look at that.
Unfortunately, when I was installing the MikroTik, somehow I busted my router.
Oh really?
I think.
So you can still log in. You can move to access mode and turn off the HTTP. And now you want to shut the VPN off and turn it back.
Right. I pulled out the VPN, shut everything down, pulled out the VPN. Except for the phone system, we use VoIP. Just, it's cheaper.
Sure.
Fewer wires coming into the house. But so when I pulled it out, I turned everything back on. Can't get to anything.
Nothing.
Can't.
And you put it back in router mode. And
Back
you
in
turn
router.
DHCP back on. The whole bit?
DHCP on everything. I even reset it to factory settings.
Okay. You have a cable modem?
Yes.
Okay. So
What it is it's going cable modem, VoIP device. It's a grand stream,
okay.
and then router.
Oh, so the router actually doesn't connect directly to the cable modem.
Right.
It sits behind this VoIP.
Right, and that's because the router we have has been buggy in the past. I'm thinking maybe it's a cheap Dynex router.
Yeah.
So
Still though, why all of a sudden would it break?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, okay, so that VoIP device has like a switch on it that you can plug multiple devices into?
2 devices, WAN and LAN.
Oh, okay, okay. WAN going to the cable modem. LAN okay. Okay, have you logged into the Dynex interface and making sure it's actually got a Cox IP?
I've tried. It got an IP.
And it was like a 63 dot something that Cox usually
Yeah,
hands out or
something like
something
that.
normal? Okay.
Well, actually, it doesn't get the IP. It's kind of weird though.
Oh wait, does that VoIP device do
Yeah,
like NAT as well?
Gives me one IP. It's
Is it an
weird.
internal IP?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it's not a 192. It's funky.
172?
No.
10? Those are the 3 private
Nope.
networks.
It's
So
some
maybe it is a real
weird-
IP. Well, if it's not one of those, it's got to be a real IP, right?
Yeah.
Because so maybe it's just passing that through, and you're getting that from Cox.
Right. That's true.
So you need to verify that
Right.
that your little
Thing
Dynex
is,
guy is
though,
talking to Cox.
In the past, before I turned off the cable modem, I checked my IP. It was a 93.
It started the first octet was 93.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird for Cox. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before I did everything, I don't.
They're usually
I think it was
63 or
90.
72.
Yeah, 63, something with a 3.
Oh, okay, okay. So you had a normal routable IP.
Right. I used to, check my IP.
Right.
Then,
But you can't do that anymore because you don't have internet access.
Right. Well, I have it because I can still use the phone.
Oh.
So, I'm also wondering, maybe is it, I don't know, the grand string? 'Cause, I have a friend who...
Well, try this. I mean, take a box, forget the router, hardwire a box right into your VoIP device.
We did.
Did that work?
I might have gotten the wrong cable, but I didn't get anything.
Well, that's not anything to do with the router. If you took the router out of the equation, it's still not working. Then
Right, I'm
you got some
thinking,
other kind of
and I have a friend, he's actually been with telecom since, circuit banks were like the size of a fridge,
Yeah.
dip switches.
Yeah.
Just Google Jim Hauser VoIP.
It's not enough for
You'll get a few different things.
Okay.
But there's one, it's some asterisk
Asterisk
mailing
system,
system.
yeah.
It's an asterisk mailing list.
Okay.
So he's used grand stream devices in the past, and he said they're pieces of junk.
Oh no.
About their only good thing, and he uses this at home, is they have these cool little video phones actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they cost
That's
too
cool.
much. $179.
Yeah.
But
That's spendy, yeah. That's cool though.
So,
Well, yeah. Try
thing
try
is
that.
both of the connections on the grand stream have always been buggy.
Oh.
So.
Well, I mean, you know how the troubleshooting process. You got to narrow it down to one variable, right? Try the one variable. If that works, change it to one other. I mean, you're on the right path. You just gotta. It's weird that you'd think it'd be the router because that's the one thing you changed, right?
I can't even connect to the router from wireless.
Oh well, then all right, it is the router.
That's what I'm
Then,
thinking.
yeah,
I think it's a couple things, honestly.
Can you hardwire into it with just a Cat5 and get an IP from it?
Yeah, I got an IP from it, but
Okay, so maybe
thing
it's
is,
just
I IP config release, IP config renewed, who knows how many times.
And you always did get an IP from it?
Always.
Oh, you did. All right.
But yeah, I tried IP config release on a wireless device. My mom's stuck on Windows. Thing is, we're using SOS for school, so SOS really only runs on Windows.
Oh, I see.
I don't even think it runs with crossover, but
Oh, really? With the line?
I use crossover.
Yeah.
Switch over to Linux, but yeah. So what do you think I should do?
Keep troubleshooting what you're doing. I mean, you've got to narrow it down to whether it's the VoIP device or whether it's the router. Eliminate, get as simple of a setup as possible. So if you've got cable modem, well, at first you said the phones are still working. So obviously the VoIP device is working and the cable modem's working, right?
Right.
All right. So hardwire, hang a box off that VoIP device. Get a Cat5 patch cable, plug it into the VoIP device, turn it on, see if you have internet. Right? Just start there. If you do, then you know those are good. Okay? Then put the router in place.
Yeah.
And then hardwire into the router. Forget the wireless for a second. Hardwire into the router. See if you get an IP. See if you can pull up the web interface of the router. See if everything looks okay. See if he's getting an IP address from Cox, right?
Right.
Just take it a step at a time. Then if that works, then try the wireless,
Right.
right?
And thing is, I also think DNS has gone bad too. It's not getting it. DNS isn't working, which was weird.
Really?
Yeah. Couldn't do anything. I tried.
Okay.
Wouldn't give me anything. I tried. I tried Google.
Yeah.
What else did I tried? Google. I tried Yahoo. I even tried Clusty, which is a little known search engine, but it's great. I even tried something called DuckDuckGo.
And I've heard of that. And those didn't resolve.
Yeah, not
All right.
resolved.
But again, is that a DNS issue? Is it an internet issue? There's too many
Right.
variables. You got to narrow it down to a single variable.
I even switched to Google's DNS service.
Oh yeah, and that still didn't. Well, you got a network. You got a network problem. Yeah. If you can't ping those, you should be able to ping those IP addresses.
Yeah, I pinged it.
And you got a response back?
Oddly enough, yes.
Well, then you got connectivity. Well, I don't know what's going on then. Maybe there's something is wonky with that router then. If it's not passing TCP through, or I don't know, man.
I never had
Yeah, take the router out of the equation.
Yeah.
Plug hardwire into the VoIP device. Just see if that works.
Yeah.
Just to establish.
But now-
Go from there.
Can't access our NAS. Little snaps are you familiar with
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. Those are
Yeah, I
nice.
got that from church.
Those are nice.
And nothing's working.
Okay.
Working with.
Well, give that a try and email me. Let me know. I'd be interested to see.
Well, I can't really email you. So.
Well, okay. Go to the church. You know?
I'll go to the church or I'll go to the library.
Okay. Go talk to your mom.
A server built in, also server on site.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Backup plus off-siting it to another server, so just the deltas to another server. I'm gonna put it in my main closet for Wolf Computing Services. My basement has a UPS. So.
Yeah, sounds like you'd like a big time.
That's what my large computer is. Then just supporting just the normal support for the workstations. You know,
Yeah, thanks.
questions from student users.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know how your troubleshooting goes. I'll be interested.
Home users, you know, that's hit or miss. I make anywhere, just on my home users, I make anywhere from 8 to 16.
Hi there.
You wrote that, huh?
Yes. Well, one of the authors. Yeah.
That's
I was the
amazing.
primary author.
All right.
That's a big deal.
Yep. I was a contributing author on the one back in 06. I wrote a couple chapters.
Are there any other O'Reilly
Like I said,
authors?
sometimes I'm busy, sometimes I'm not. But
Maybe,
this
I don't
year's
know.
gonna be-
There are a lot.
Possibly. Yeah, they have a lot of
It's not cheap.
a lot of books. God, an ebook wouldn't either. It's still like $40.
My business
I
is
know.
in the libraries.
You know, I live in Bellevue. I gave the Bellevue Library a copy. Hopefully they put it on the shelf.
The three businesses that I support on a basis. Plus I've got a couple of buddies that call me when they need me.
So it was a lot of fun. A lot of work. My God, it was a lot of work. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, how's you doing?
I gave
Good.
I
I don't know if you remember me from.
I do.
2 years ago.
Tell me your name again. I do.
Dallas.
Dallas. Okay.
I was at the Install Fest.
At the Install Fest? Okay.
2 years ago.
Okay, up at Turning Point?
Yep.
That's fine. I think that was last Install Fest.
I talked to a lawyer.
Yeah, we sort of fell off on.
I've been here
And
last.
he's like, oh, you need to take a look at what you made the last 5 years. And that's what
Okay,
you
I've
asked.
been away.
After I got off the floor laughing.
And I, prior to that, I had been over a year
Oh, okay.
since I've been up here. for
What?
everything, so.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad, thank you tonight. I mean, it's giving me an idea. I need to go to the storage unit, pull out a little box that I have, and
There you go. Did you use that out, right?
I'm thinking about playing
Because
around
of
with
the
it.
particular about it.
Yeah, sure, why not? That's the best way to learn, right?
Maybe set up
I built this
another
for the last 15
wireless.
years. I've got 15 years of my life in it. And these are all
I don't know
built
enough, and set up,
All but
maybe
the
set
big
up
customers
enough
I
wireless
fired.
and leave it open and see
All
what
these people
neighbors
are
are
both
doing.
those people friends.
I'm not doing anything harmful, just
Right,
because,
right.
you know, look and then.
I tell you what I do, and I've been meaning to kind of go the next step on this. I have an old Linksys device that works really well with one of those open source firmwares. Those open source router firmwares. DDWRT is the one that I use. DDWork is what it's called.
Make that money back.
And it's sort of Linux based, I think. But you download that and you flash your router just like you were doing an upgrade, but it totally replaces the operating system on your little access point size routers with this DDWork.
Two individuals that
And
were
it's
interested.
all this other new, it like turns it into like a Cisco router.
Change positions.
And one of the things you can do with it, and I found a site that gives you documentation, I've done it yet, but it lets you have a private, a wireless, private SSID, secured whatever over here, and a public open one, two completely different subnets, VLAN off, but they both have internet access, but they can't talk to each other. So with one device, you can have a private network like you're talking about and a public network. Yeah, on one device, one antenna, yeah.
The one G router that I have,
Yeah.
certain numbers and stuff, I remember I looked at it and stuff, and it's one of the models that they were getting it out, so it does have some space inside to actually do all this, so.
Gutting, like taking the hardware out and doing it?
No, not the
Oh,
hardware.
oh, okay,
No,
just-
some of it, basically the storage and, inside the wireless, and it's a Lin 6.
Okay.
They've changed where they limited how much.
Flash memory in there or
how much
something?
flash
I see,
memory.
I see.
This
Okay.
one here is one of the ones that are in that series that you could actually go on and change stuff, and you have room to do everything that you want.
I got you. Okay, so you wouldn't even necessarily have to replace the built-in OS, so you could run side by side. Okay. What I'm looking at doing, I think, because this is like an old deal, like Newegg has an Asus one. That's like $40. It's an N router. It's got a USB port on it, so you can hang a hard drive on it and make it a simple little NAS. And it's like runs DD work like out of the box. There's something it's like $42 on Newegg.
But they need somebody.
You can hang a printer off it and it'd be a print server. I know, for like, yeah.
Or just
Got
put
an
a
Apple router too that. That be something
maybe
they
that's
could do
all.
with that.
I don't know. I think you're pretty limited with how much you can hack those guys. You know, it's like an airport Extreme or whatever there.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Now a lot of those have that functionality built into it, you know, the print server and things like that. But as far as putting a third-party firmware on it, probably not. I just remember reading this article about how you could actually SSH into the router then and run IP tables commands yourself to do this. And it was pretty cool. It's like not quite a Linux box, but pretty close, you know, in its little limited environment. So it was kind of neat.
So, I mean, as you can see, they've grown extensively in the last 7 years.
Brought the brain function a little bit here, and I'm
With the
thinking,
backups, I've got to do something.
Yeah, it's just fun to play around with, right? Like I was talking to some of the guys earlier. I'm sort of past the tinkering stage in my relationship with Linux. I used to, you know, spend hours and hours and hours making this stuff work. And a lot of times now I just sort of want it to work, but there's still some of these things I sort of like to dig into and, you know, just kind of have fun with playing around. And if it takes me hours to do it, that's fine, you know, because I just do it for enjoyment. But yeah, then some of it lends itself nice to some, you know, corporate-wide solutions or whatever. And you test this home and it works, then you implement it at work. Everybody's happy.
Because
Everybody's
backups
happy.
fail,
Right?
but operation
Yeah.
What's going on?
So like your scripture,
So,
Yeah.
I noticed you're putting the same content and information that you're naming the file.
if they're gonna fire me, they're
Yeah.
gonna
You're heading that back out. You could
I
take
know.
out a lot of.
When I was reviewing for tonight, I looked at that and I was trying to think, all right,
If you touch the file
why
with
was
that,
I doing that? Because I remember there was some reason why I had both the data in the file and the file name, but I can't remember what that reason was. But
I
I
was just looking at it and like going, okay, so if you touch it, then this would take up next to zero drives, which are outdated.
yeah. So why am I even putting content in that file at all? I should just get it from the file, right?
And that would save you the whole initial head.
Opening the file, and you're right.
You can just say
I need
for
to
every
review
file,
that
just
again.
split it all up and now you get all your
Yeah.
info.
I'm sure there's a reason I did that. I can't remember why.
Some of the stuff will get in there and I'm sure the looking for the IP
What's that?
first will help out.
Yeah.
Some of those scripts, if you actually did turn them into Perl, would probably function a lot faster.
I'm just not that much of a pro monk.
And the last two things are, and need help with that. I am a pro.
appreciate it.
I know you are.
But I'm trying to also be a Python group too. So
Oh, how's that going?
Yeah,
Do you really?
like I said, I've got somebody who wants to buy up just the whole white space. But
I couldn't get past
separated,
that for a while
it's
when
not
I
really
actually
really
started
about
forcing myself to type some Python scripts.
Yeah, you're okay.
It started to make some sense. And then think about it like this, let's just say this is this place, and you start handing the script off, it forces style. You don't have to worry
there's
about people
all
doing
these
all kinds of
advantages.
stuff.
I know.
You're talking about Python?
Python, yeah. That's next on my list. I got to kind of get into that, you know, just to be familiar with it. Because I found some really cool. Well, one thing I'm looking at, I'll send you a link, see what your opinion of it is. We're in situations a lot where we need to scrape data from websites, and we've gotten really good at using the Perl modules to do all this kind of stuff, right? A lot of these sites now have their data models in JavaScript. You've got to have a JavaScript interpreter to interpret the page.
Yeah, it's
Because
25%.
some might
Inline, which you're going to implement some JavaScript interpreter, right? So I found a really cool Python library.
That's one of the benefits of if somebody can
HTML engine in Keynote.
they're going to get a user
And
base.
you write a
that
script and it
actually
automates
help,
going to the site.
you know, I'd say
Be interesting to look at.
better than 50%
I need to go
of
on
my
Python, but
users
this is exactly what I want.
will go through.
So yeah, I'll send you a link.
I started
And
trying
set
to
them up with
learn,
software
go,
to do
you know,
some of this themselves,
over
like
10,
run
you know, 10 to 15 years doing Perl, trust me,
Yeah.
it was a,
I bet.
okay, the step is really,
I'm sorry, my
you know,
Yeah.
but now that I've actually sort of getting on top of that stuff, I'm starting to actually like what I see with Python. And don't get me wrong, somebody says, I need a script real quick, I break down what I know and jump into Perl.
Which is exactly why
I
I did.
dragged
Yeah,
the mail
and I'm trying to learn Bash and you know, but I also, I know Shell and Corn Shell too, so
go to applications.
I'm very,
Oh, God.
I love Corn Shell. But, no, one of the things I was gonna mention with that was, because you were talking about on-the-fly stuff, well, there's all these,
Yeah.
not to use Facebook as an example, but, there's all these